Welcome to SUSE Live. I'm Brent Schroeder. I head the offices of CTO for SUSE. In the offices of CTO, we spend time examining emerging technologies and key use cases and how that impacts our customers. In SUSE Live, we want to examine those and look at how that's occurring in real life, how you guys are experiencing it, and also talk with special guests on a particular topic and dive into that in more detail. Today, I'm here in Amsterdam with Andreas Prins, who heads the marketing organization, the VP of Marketing for Enterprise Container Management Product. Welcome, Andreas.
Thank you so much. Good to have you here in the sunny Amsterdam.
It's sunny Amsterdam, nice and cool, so I can get better acclimated to the northern weather. So today we're going to talk about cloud native technology and strategies for adopting that and some of the challenges that customers run into. In 2024, Gartner sees that 73% of CIOs and technology leaders are adopting and expanding their cloud infrastructure and their cloud investments, and that 68% are increasing investment on application modernization. The primary goal that customers have in deploying cloud native is really to accelerate development, provide self-service to development teams, and really improve the efficiency of operations of the business. Andreas, can you reflect a little bit on some of these trends and what you're seeing when you talk with customers?
Yeah, definitely. And if we think about the cloud native movement or cloud native strategies, it's out there for a very, very long time already, right? Nothing new as such. And we see that literally at almost all of our customers who are onto cloud native, right? The widespread uses of microservices, application teams adopting modern practices, and we'll speak about it a little later as well. And that becomes a kind of natural and normal. And now we see that it's not only happening right in the customer-facing applications, but more and more also to the back-end processes, right? That new microservices architectures are being picked up. Yeah. At the same time, we see the move already happening towards serverless, right? So the teams that once moved to microservices are now rethinking again their strategies, but all again in the bigger bucket of cloud native. So that's one trend. The other, I do think, kind of an interesting trend is the modernization, right? So moving from virtual machines over to containerized workloads. So we see that happening, well, not in parallel, but at our customers as well, not at the same speed as the microservices and the cloud native, but teams leaving virtual machines behind and modernizing their application landscapes to utilize some cloud native technology in that space and getting rid of VMs. And I do think that is a fascinating move, that we not only see it happening at the edge of the company, but also more towards the core process. And if you take banking, healthcare, insurance, right, it also these core fundamental processes are now changed and moved to cloud native architectures.
Yeah, very good. So when I talk to customers, I still find that many are relatively early on in their adoption, right? And have done projects, proof of concepts, and now are starting to scale the business. I think a key part of being successful is having a strategy.
Yes.
And really thinking it out ahead of time.
Yes.
So if I was going to break that down into methodologies and approaches, step one, kind of laying the foundation.
Yeah.
Let's start with that and kind of the unified life cycle in that foundation. Yeah. Can you explain what's most critical in this step one?
Yeah. So you could argue if you don't have a platform to operate on, you don't have anything to move towards. So what we see happening in our customers is the first and foremost important move is to the start of Kubernetes, right? Kubernetes at scale, running tens of clusters, hundreds of namespaces, thousands of namespaces, and then engineering teams moving their workloads to these clusters. Okay. And before companies start to further mature, they need to have this base super solid in place. And we've seen customers many customers actually, they do a kind of a second iteration of their cloud landscape because they start with the best intentions, but in the first two and a half years, they learn lessons, and then they come to the conclusion that the platform management practices are not in place. And that hurts when you want to upgrade. If you speak about lifecycle management of your platform, when you do upgrades to later versions of Kubernetes, that limits them because it's not set up properly. Right. When you think about an enterprise that needs to provide stable long-term support to their business partners, the business applications running there, it very well might be that you cannot follow the pace of which Kubernetes is rolling out new versions. So they need to think about lifecycle management and choose a solution that supports longer lifecycle than just always latest. And then a very important part is if you build a platform, the base layer, and you just focus on setting up the platform, but not thinking through what if I adopt 2 engineering teams, 5 engineering teams, 50 engineering teams? How do I manage security and access to that particular platform? And that's right, a kind of a very important element to it. So it's cluster management, it's security, it is upgrades, lifecycle management of all the distributions. And when we speak about unifying the lifecycle, getting that in control, these are some of the elements that you need to take into account.
In that first step.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a little bit of the value that they get. You know, does it take 2 years to get to value, or are there some near-term returns that they start getting even in this first phase?
Yeah, definitely. And the good part is the market around platform management or platform engineering, if you like, has matured that far and that fast in recent years that there's a lot of technology out there and a lot of practices described. If you, for example, think about the Site Reliability Engineering Handbook from Google already many years ago, very well defined best practices. And the technology allows you to very quickly roll out your base platform and then start adopting teams, right? But that's kind of at a small scale. If you think that through big scale, you definitely are moving away from a local cluster on your local machine to host it in clouds. And then there are a lot of considerations you can take into account. So I would say getting started is relatively easy. Think about the architecture patterns that need to land on the clusters before picking tools, building processes around it. I do think one very important part to think through, which we didn't touch upon, is if you start scaling this out, it's not only that you use the public cloud, it can be public cloud and probably some private cloud. And then private cloud, it could even go as far as air-gapped environments. But also if you think about public, it can be edge, right? So it's really the combination of edge and then all different variants, public cloud, private, and even air-gapped environments. And thinking that through, well, that's obviously introducing a little bit of thinking complexity probably. So before you get to that stage, well, you mature further. And
I think it's a key part of cloud native is the flexibility of deploying where you need to deploy based on business requirements.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people, when I talk to them, I say cloud native, they think cloud.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And what you really need to think about when you think about cloud native is the cloud is everywhere now, right? It doesn't matter if it's public cloud or on-prem or at the edge. It really spans that whole spectrum.
I really like you're saying that, and let me touch upon it. So, if to your point, so some people think is, hey, if I use Kubernetes, right, that is cloud native. But when I think about cloud native, it's definitely the platform, right? Probably first and foremost. But if you think about it, it's also then the tool set that goes around the platform, CI/CD tooling, other automation tooling, making use of a lot of code scanning, security scanning, etc. It is also the architecture you pick, microservices, serverless. It is probably even the development practices, right, of small sprints, delivering small pieces of value. So to me, cloud native is much more than technology. It's almost a synonym to modern development practices. And that can perfectly be in an air-gapped environment, right? It not necessarily need to be public cloud, Amazon, Azure, Google. No, it can be an air-gapped environment where you use that same technology to accelerate your business. So to me, cloud native is really, do you want to benefit from modern technology that provides you a good foundation for innovation, and then, it can run anywhere.
Processes that can take advantage of that. So, great point. So, all right, once that foundation is set, the next step is, especially as you scale, observing and securing, right? And so how do they go about doing that? Because that's really one of the concerns, talk to senior leadership is, these containers, they're coming up, they're coming down, they're at the edge, they're in the cloud. How do I get a handle on this?
So the interesting part is if you think about cloud native or platform engineering, we very much focus often on the platform layer. Let's call it infrastructure, operating system, etc. But the real value for an enterprise only comes when you start to deploy applications on top of the cluster. And when you start to deploy workloads, business applications, then it's no longer a question is, can I deploy it? But the real question is, does it run stable, healthy, reliable, and is it secure, right? So, and by saying that, we're not only focusing on platform engineers or infrastructure operations, we're looking at the different type of engineers, developers, that joins the cloud native game. And really important is if you start to do applications at scale, definitely take a look at observability and take a look at security as the two kind of main angles to ensure reliable business applications.
Yeah, so what are some of the practical tools and strategies that companies might implement to get a handle on both of the security and observability?
Yeah. So if we think about observability, I would say the market is truly maturing around a couple practices. So there's big movement for eBPF, and you can look it up what it is. It's a whole different live stream probably.
Yeah.
And there's OpenTelemetry as a standardization on metrics, events, logs, trace.
Yep.
And due to the fact that the market is maturing so rapidly, there are tens of solutions, traditional ones, but also very modern ones, that help you out to set up a observability strategy. And engineering teams can start very small.
Yeah.
With just getting the basic metrics, events, logs, and trace in, and then use that to turn that into kind of measurements on how stable, reliable is my application operating. And it can be very technical, but you can even measure business metrics that tell you something about the amount of visitors, the amount of abandoned carts, right? So it's not only technical, but it can also be more business oriented. And then the other important element is obviously security. And if we think about security, it's a extreme wide spectrum, right? And it's often misunderstood because it goes from code scanning, network security, container security with vulnerabilities. So certainly, right, it needs to address a wide spectrum. But having some code scanning, some quality measures in place in the development, important, but really important, and also where SUSE security shines is keeping track of the applications that run in production, understanding what traffic comes in, if that's actually allowed, how services communicate with each other, building that understanding of the dependencies. So if something goes wrong, that you can trace actually into your application what might be affected. So SUSE provides SUSE observability that supports eBPF, OpenTelemetry to build that good understanding of the application reliability, as well as SUSE security that detects vulnerabilities in containers and takes care of your network security. So two core elements of our platform that help engineering teams grow and mature the control of their workloads.
Very good. So from there, the next step is we're going to bringing it home, right? And with that foundation in place, the focus now becomes scaling, right?
Definitely.
We went from one department to 5 departments to now I want the whole business to be participating. What are some of the strategies required to really make it a full enterprise solution and get everybody on board?
Yeah, I always like to split it up into two different streams. So there's the stream where you have traditional workloads, let's say VMs. We touched upon that in the beginning, that you want to modernize and bring over to your container management platform, your containerized workloads, and that often requires an application re-architecture. So with your platform and your practices stable in place, it's about time to think that through and start migrating from VMs towards containerized. But that takes time, right? And it often impacts the core process of any company. But if the platform is there, it's about time to start doing, because then you also there create more flexibility, you can drive innovation, and most likely will reduce the cost, because a cloud native can be cheaper than more VM-based operations.
Right.
So that's the modernization. Then the other one to consider, and in my opinion, to split in thinking, is how do I actually modernize my engineering practices? So can I make use of more repeatable building blocks? What are the containers that my engineers are using? Are they secure? So what we believe here at SUSE is we provide what we call SUSE application collection. So a curated set of containers where you know the software bill of materials, who created it, how is it created, what is in there, are the right licenses in there? Because if you speed up, because your platform is ready, so if you speed up more workloads and more engineers deploying there, you still want to remain compliant and in control.
Yeah.
So thinking that through, more automation in your engineering process, there's a whole movement of internal developer portals. These are some of the trends to consider, because then we can really scale it out from one team to 5 to 50 to 500 and push that forward.
Okay, very good. Got one last question for you. I'm going to go a little off track here, but I think it's top of mind for everybody. So you mentioned VMs and migrating applications. What if I have a few VMs that I don't want to invest in migrating? Is there a strategy in cloud native to coexist with those but bring them into a common experience?
At SUSE we believe, right, that ultimately if you want to unify management, right, of your containerized workloads and your VMs, you should be able to do that, right? So apply not all similar practices, but some of the practices that you have for container management to VMs. So SUSE is able with SUSE virtualization to bring them over, and even if they remain there, right, that's perfectly fine. They can be operated kind of in the same fashion as you would do with your container.
So people can kind of make the choose what to migrate when.
Exactly.
But still improve the efficiency of the organization by bringing together one management paradigm.
Yeah, exactly.
So, man, that sounds fantastic. I know that was a little bit of a curveball there for you, but it's the question I get asked every customer visit I go on. So I thought it would be good to get in there. So thank you, Andreas, for joining me today and your insights into cloud native and strategies for companies to put in action and think through to give them a better experience. And now I have a call to action for all of you. Now is the time to embrace cloud native computing. It delivers value to you as a business, improves the operational efficiency of the organization, improves the time to value and the time to deliver new capabilities to the market. So take that next step on the journey to put in place a scalable solution. And if you've got questions and are not sure what the next step is, then ask SUSE. We've been there, we've done this many times with customers, and so we would be glad to share best practices with you and give you insights into that. Second, I want to make sure to invite you guys to ask questions. Feel free to post those in the Q&A section and we will get back to you with answers. And one final call to action is join us at SUSECon. It's in Orlando, Florida. Get away from the winter break, March 10th through 14th. You'll be able to see the products in action, engage with the development teams, talk to Andreas, and most importantly, be able to hear from your peers that have done this before, that have been on that journey. Be able to network with them, ask them what their experience has been, what are the challenges that they've come over that they've overcome so that they can help you on your journey. Again, thank you for joining me on SUSE Live, and we'll see you again soon.